Good morning. Thank you for having me here. It's a great honor to join you. Deep appreciation for your investment in our work in Jewish camp and Jewish work in camping. Actually, there's a lot of fascinating work that's come out of this in terms of interfaith work around character development. And thank you for everything you do. This is really important work. Before I jump into a camp-like experience, I brought sneakers, but you don't have to. It's okay. I wanted to sort of orient you sort of where we are. I actually grew up not that far from here, but that's not what I'm going to, really sort of where we are in terms of time, at least my experience of time. We're on a journey from Passover, where we experience our slavery. On Sunday nights, we have Shavuot, a holiday of receiving the Torah. We're moving from slavery to freedom and revelation. We're also at a time of real terror, heartache, pain, Israel, Palestine, DC, worldwide, many campuses, but hopefully we'll see maybe not at camp, sort of real distress. Notable Jewish historian Salah Baron said, suffering is part of the destiny of the Jews, but it's also repeated joy as well as ultimate redemption. So how do we hold all of this all the time? How might we get past this lachrymose theory of Jewish history? In short, I would say purposeful play. But if you ask a rabbi, he's going to want to play with Jewish texts. So we're going to get to that. But before that, I wanted to orient us in the room or how we're showing up. Just for a moment, think to yourselves, when I say play, where do you show up? What is your type of play of choice? What is your variety of play? What is your spice of play? Where are you playing? Where are you experiencing this joy? What are you doing? Who's around you? Is it the same play you had today from when you were a child? Is it the same play you had before you had your own children? Is it the same play that children are playing today as children used to play? Is play a verb or a button that we press? I want to share an image because I keep coming back to this in terms of play. Years ago, now I'm going to show my true Philadelphia colors here. Years ago, I was down the shore, and my brother, I have brothers, I'm the youngest of four, brothers like 5 years older than me. I have more if you need. We must have been out there for hours and hours, and he is building a magnificent sandcastle. I said, Mike, what are you doing? He's like a professor of medicine. I was like, Mike, what are you doing? He's like, I'm building a sandcastle for the kids. I'm like, the kids have been inside for 4 hours. Like, they've been inside for 4 hours. What are you talking about? He's like, but I'm building it for the kids. So it is noteworthy that like it is something that we associate with children, is permissible for children, but in some ways, as a parent myself, it is an excuse for me to play, is like, come out here and play so I can play. As this is sort of interesting, sort of like, why don't I get to play pretend? I need my daughter to play pretend so I can play pretend. So there is something interesting there that sort of, when did we put childish things aside? And when did we go to do important things? I'm not saying we shouldn't do important things, but it's something noteworthy that sort of like kids are the cause, excuse, rationale, or a memory of. But it is noteworthy of saying like, why don't I play kickball anymore? Maybe my Achilles, whatever it is, like whatever reason it is, but it's just noteworthy of like, how do kids or our own imagination of childhood show up for us as adults when we think about play? Is that a bridge or a barrier to what play could be for us in terms of giving us, sparking joy for us of what that could be? Whenever it gets one, I'm not gonna call on people, and I'm definitely gonna ask you to read the Hebrew or the Aramaic, but I would love volunteers to read for us the text in English, and I will obnoxiously interrupt in a playful way. Can someone read source number 1? This is a Gemara in Tanit. The Talmud is composed by the year 500, Common Era. Tanit, most generally, is a book that deals with when does a community institute fasts. This is not on that topic, but it is a gorgeous little story that I just wanted to start us off with about this. Seemingly, it's sort of in the border between Iraq and Iran, a neighborhood that this is happening. Not relevant to the story, but interesting. Can someone read source number 1 for us? So you have the rabbi. not in the house of study. He's in the marketplace, and he's wandering about, and Elijah's there. Elijah is a liminal character who often appears in mystical realities, and they're hanging out. And then Rabbi Rocha says, anyone have a portion of the world to come? Meaning, is anyone, I would say, get an A+ in life? Is anyone sort of scoring big here? And the answer is very clearly no, right? We'll come back to that in a second, but it's already an interesting question. You sort of, the mystical scene is already set up. He's in the marketplace, meaning marketplace is where all the people are coming and going. Is anyone getting an A+ here? And the answer is no. There's another story, which for the sake of time, we skipped. So keep on reading to the core story. If you were to take a camera and look at this, you have Rabbi Rocha and Elijah. They're in the marketplace walking around. No, these two guys show up. We'd assume they're dressed as jesters, right? Just because like we have an imagination of people dressed as clowns. And he says they get an A+ here. They might not know they're getting an A+. Like Elijah knows they're getting an A+, and now Rabbi Rocha knows they're getting an A+. And then he says, what do you do? Now, it's pretty clear to me, he already knows what they do. They're dressed as clowns, right? That's sort of like, but he wants to know what they do, right? And even if they don't know they're getting an A+, they know their intention, which is already a big part of the story, that they know why they do what they do. And it might be seen as demeaning to dress up like a clown. I actually gave a lot more thought to what I was going to wear today than my talk, because like, how do I balance being a camp person and wearing a suit? This is my happy medium. But this is fascinating is they know why they do what they do, which is not a small part of being good at what you do, is knowing why you're doing it. Why do they do what they do? They want to deal with mental health crisis, and they want to bring about peace. Now, if I knew I had a magic potion that could deal with these two main crises of our day, a mental health crisis and peace, I would happily dress up like a clown to sort of make it happen, right? So like, what's going on here? So this is a small part of the Talmud. Actually, this is a part of a liturgical reading every day, is to read these things and saying like, this is what you got to do every day. And these are things that you do that you'll get an A+ here, and in the world to come, you'll get an A+. And what's interesting is, not so shockingly, I put it in green to underline it, is bringing peace between each other is like a high commodity here. Interestingly enough, for Rabbi Rocha's sake, teaching Torah like is the sort of overarching thing of all of it. The reason that's fascinating to me is Rabbi Rocha is in the marketplace, and he says to Elijah, "Does anyone here get an A+?" And the answer is no. You know who's in the marketplace? Rabbi Rocha. He's not getting an A+ today. So it's interesting, sort of like they're doing the work, they're achieving things, and it's an unpredictable way, especially for the guy who says, hey, I thought all of this came under my department of teaching Torah. And the answer is, you're not bringing it home. You're not doing it. These guys are doing it, right? So I think it's fascinating sort of to contextualize this. Rabbi Rocha is not getting the A+, these guys are, and it's because it doesn't matter how they do it, but they're achieving bringing about peace, right? Any other thoughts? It is fascinating is, I've been a rabbi for quite some time. I've been working with camp people for a long, long time. And I've come to a understanding that I love camp people because they take their work, but not themselves very seriously. And I think there's something powerful to that they are so aligned to their mission that they don't mind showing up in the marketplace looking like an ass because it delivers the goods. So I've always been saying, as a rabbi, and I say this to counselors all the time, we show up in 3 gears. We push, we pull, we hold. I push people to take Torah, Judaism, whatever you want to say, push people to take that seriously. I pull them in by not taking myself too seriously, and I hold people when they need shelter from the storm. Those are the 3 ways I show up in society. Those are the 3 ways I tell everyone they need to show up in society. This is when I talk about an idealized utopian space of camp, I say to the camp counselors, this is your job. You have to figure out when you're going to push, when you're going to pull, when you're going to hold. And camp is this unique environment where it's situated for the pulling. The jesters win because they know how to pull people in. They say, oh, you're having a hard day. Let me pull you in and make you laugh. Oh, you're about to sort of have a fight. Let me pull you in and make peace here, right? There's something powerful that they're not taking themselves very seriously for a very, very serious purpose because they take their work very seriously. I think it's profound in that sense, which is you got to push, you got to pull, and you got to hold. And it's not always so easy. A couple months ago, I was in Israel, and they bring about, well, it depends what happens with the J1 visa right now, but they're supposed to bring about 2,000 Israeli emissaries to work in camps this summer. I don't know if that's going to work out. Well, hopefully it'll work out. But there was a training for about a third of them, and I was learning with them. And I was learning this piece of Talmud with some Israelis, and they've had a really difficult last 18 months. And I said to this camp counselor, your job this summer is to be the jester. Your job is to pull them in, because as hard as your last 18 months have been, it's been really hard for these kids at home. And this is your job. And she said to me, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I have it in me. I say, I thank you for being honest. Like, thank you for showing up and saying like what you can and can't do. Most often the problem is not the 3 gears. It's a misalignment of the gears, meaning I need you to hold me and you're pushing. That's not going to work. But I said, your job is to pull, especially in a camp environment. And she said to me, I don't think I have it. And then I recalled to her one of my favorite quotes from Alan Moore, who wrote The Watchmen, a graphic novel, if you know it. And there he tells a story, says, heard a joke once, man goes to doctor, says he's depressed, says life seems harsh and cruel, says he feels all alone in a threatening world where what lies ahead is vague and uncertain. Doctor says treatment is simple. The great clown Pagliacci, the crying clown, is in town tonight. Go and see him. That should pick you up. The man bursts into tears, says, but doctor, I'm Pagliacci. How do we pull people in? How do we act the clown when we don't have it in us? And I think what is noteworthy, not from my tradition, is when things get bad and things get urgent, people pull away from play. People pull away from being the clown. People pull away from being the trickster. My knowledge of the New Testament is limited, but in Obama's inauguration speech, he said, we remain a young nation, but in the words of the scripture, the time has come to set aside childish things, which I've learned later is from Corinthians. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. I played kickball like a child. When I became a man, I put away childhood behind me. Why is it then when things get tough, we say, okay, now it's time to stop playing. It's time to get serious. I think it's in this moment of urgency that people are experiencing pain that we need to double down and really think about what is purposeful play and how might it be not the jackasses showing up in the marketplace, but actual a means to mental health stability and peace, actually. And in that sense, like, what is the urgency of camp as a place of purposeful play? So just to take a side to sort of tell people like a history of Jewish camping in this country, because I think it's actually helpful and illustrative to this moment we're in. The first Jewish camps are started about 115, 20 years ago as fresh air fun camps to actually get kids out of the city. You had all these urban plights, we need to get them out of the city, and very quickly became a naturalizing capacity of how do we take these immigrants and make them good Americans or Canadians. We just need to take these immigrants and make them good Americans already. And then in the recoiling from the Holocaust, a realization of a massive enterprise of rebuilding institutional Jewish life in North America, a realization of we have this amazing tool, but we don't need to worry about making them American. We need to figure out how to make them Jewish now. And we have this emergence of a movement of camps with different flavors of how do we use this utopian imagination of this play space to actually make Jews, not just Americans. And then we had crisis after crisis. We had the Pew study that said, which now is up to 70% of Jews are intermarrying, which is not an inherent problem. It's just a question of maintaining a tradition and how do we sort of deal with that complexity. And then we have another group of camps saying, okay, we're going to deal with this. And now we find ourselves today saying, how will we deal with the current crises? I am pushing back against the Corinthians that saying it's time to put away childish things and saying it's time to invest in camp. Camp as a natural place where the market and the jester actually are at home. They're actually a place where we can tell 18-year-olds, here's where you can pull people in, and here's where you can actually have an imagination. Dr. Stuart Brown, in his book Play, records an encounter he had with Bob Fagan, a renowned animal behaviorist. They were in Alaska, and they were observing two bears playing. And Stuart said to Bob, hey, why are they playing? And he says, you know, why do birds sing? Why do people dance? It's enjoyable. And he says, you are the guy. Bob, you have degrees from Harvard and MIT and an in-depth knowledge of bears. You are a student of evolution. You've written the definitive work on all mammals at play. I know you have more opinion on this. Tell me, why do animals play? After a long, tolerant silence, during which I felt as if he were a sensitive artist having to explain a sublime painting to a tasteless dolt, Bob relented. He answered reluctantly. In a world continuously presenting unique challenges and ambiguity, play prepares these bears for an evolving planet. They're not playing to have fun. They're playing because it's urgent to actually figure out how to evolve to the future. It's not about survival, it's about thriving. Camp is not just Brigadoon that pops up every 100 years. It is not just a location. It is not just summertime. It is not just a personnel of 18-year-olds who know how to pull our kids in. It is all that, but it's also an educational philosophy of purposeful play. Camps and clowns are very serious business. As Einstein said, the thinking that got us to where we are is not the thinking that will get us to where we want to be. This adult thinking that had us put away childish things is not going to be helpful to help us figure out how to have peace and mental health today. But how do we do it? Rav Nachman of Bratslav, 18th century Hasidic thinker, famously said, if you believe breaking is possible, believe fixing is possible. At its foundation, we need to have a core of optimism that we broke it and therefore we can fix it. As I mentioned, we are nearing Shavuot, this march from slavery to freedom. But it's not a freedom from, it's a freedom to. As Isaiah Berlin wrote in Two Concepts of Liberty, there's a negative and a positive liberty. Negative liberty is freedom from interference by others, while positive liberty is a freedom to act and achieve goals, being one's own master and not under external control. How is it possible that a group of slaves would be ready to the great encounter at Mount Sinai? How is it possible that I will be ready by Sunday night to receive the Torah? At its core, at some level, it's not just a process or a product of me, it is a process and a product of we. Something fundamental to the camp experience is the experience of group, of bunk, of togetherness, of belonging. Oh, you're in bunk 12? I'm in bunk 12. I think you are horrible the way you acted and you're representing us as bunk 12 is comes across with love because you know we're in bunk 12. I just met you 5 minutes ago, but you already know that we belong together because we are doing this together. To explore this, I think it's fascinating contextualizing this back into our Exodus from Egypt story, long before you heard the bellowing voice of Charlton Heston saying, let my people go. You heard another voice. So can someone read source number 3 for us? So he doesn't come and say, let my people go. He comes and says, we are going to go on a 3-day retreat. We're not leaving. We'll be back. We'll build your pyramids. We'll do it all. We just want to go on a 3-day retreat. Is that okay? And the answer is, I don't know your God. But then the answer is, actually, this is an impediment to productivity and work. So festival is the opposite of work. And in many ways, we put away our play when we had to go to work. The festival is a purposeful playfulness. We cannot have a nation without imagination. We can't have a new reality with an old mentality. We need retreat to play because play is the song of freedom. I've many times in the last 18 months been heartbroken, not just about the devastation in Israel and Palestine, also that, but that we will generate an entire generation who does not know how to play. We're just resuscitating a mentality that will keep us in a status quo or worse, as opposed to giving us a break for purposeful play to imagine how we will evolve to a world we haven't even seen yet. And the answer is, it's impossible for the slaves to ever get to Sinai if they're still slaves. They can't even imagine getting out. I just want them to get out for a retreat, to imagine what it would be like to not be a slave. Just imagine the inception of that. And that's incredibly disturbing because it's not productive. It's not, I don't think Pharaoh is stupid. I don't think he's saying, oh my God, you're gonna miss 3 days of work. How are you gonna pay me back? I think he's realizing that if they had a retreat to actually imagine and experience purposeful play, that would be the revolution. That would be it, the game over. Why? Because they'd have conception about what the impact of this could be. And my point is, I'm not saying people should give up their day jobs and play all the time. I'm just saying we need to intentionally create moments of intentional, purposeful play, because that's what gets our imagination going for an evolving world that we haven't even seen yet. Otherwise, we're stuck with the old thinking, and we're never going to get out of it. So you have Shabbat of the text, which is, and every single Friday night when I get up to say Kiddush, the sort of sanctifying the time, I'm not only saying today is the moment of realizing God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, therefore I should, but also this is the God who took us out of Egypt. These are the same products. This is retreat, this is play, this is imagination. The Shabbat exists in text, existed in antiquity, existed in modern life, and then it hit camp and exploded. And it came up with all these different forms of how they're going to play with time and space and orient themselves differently to have a different imagination of a different utopia of what they could create. And if I had a penny for every single time someone said to me, Shabbat at camp is the best thing. It's the best thing. But that's not the funniest thing. The funniest thing is when people say to me, no, you don't understand. Camp is the Shabbat of my year. So Shabbat at camp is the Shabbat of the Shabbat of Shabbat. It's like layered in, but it's an imagination of like, we are achieving a utopian imagination about what our nation could be. And that is powerful. That is what Pharaoh is worried about, is this imagination that will propel a nation. And what's fascinating about the research that you alluded to that we've been doing with your help is around character is not just that is a great place to teach kindness, but also responsibility. That sort of birthed out of this utopian experience is a profound unintended consequences of the serious impact of campers and counselors saying, I am responsible for each other. I actually have a nation and I'm responsible to this group. And how, I want to push this further because at the core, no one has ever said to your kids, stop playing kickball. They say, aren't you a little too old to play kickball? So the question I want to push us for, and the last time we have moments together is play just for kids? Okay, I'm going to make you read number 4 there. Be good. Yeah, you'll be my kickball person. That's fine. So Zechariah is imagining Zechariah who lived after the first destruction, before the building of the second temple. It's sort of imagining a future time, a messianic era. And in that, it's sort of the courtyards of Jerusalem. But what's fascinating to me is the image of you have the old men and women there and the kids. They're in the same space. It is not a space where the kids are doing kid things and adults are doing adult things. There is a common intergenerational experience of purposeful play. And that is a utopian vision that is sitting with me for years now at this point, saying like, what is this utopian vision where it's not that we give up kickball for power or festival for labor. We actually say a utopian vision where we could all do this together, right? And so much of this is lost on us in our lives where our grandparents don't live very far from their grandkids. And they're really not that sort of moments of meeting between generations, let alone playing. But how magical it is to sort of have a prophetic vision of intergenerational purposeful play. And I'm not saying this is what camp is. I'm just saying this is what Zechariah's vision of this is. So I want to bring this forward because maybe the name of this as a prophetic vision is a misnomer. It's really a rabbinic vision. So we're going to jump right into source number 5 here because I think this is the good stuff here. I'm not going to make someone else read this because it's too dense. This is the end of the Gemara in Makot. The Gemara relates another incident involving the sages, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Akiva, the rabbis of the time of the destruction of the Second Temple. There were an occasion they were ascended to Jerusalem after destruction, and they arrived at Mount Scopus, and they saw the site of the temple, and they rent their garments. So there's a common Jewish ritual when you're horribly sad about, like, my parent dies, I rip my garments. This is something you do. So they're up on the Temple Mount, they're getting at the Temple Mount, and they see it's destroyed, rip their garments. Not so crazy. When they arrived at the Temple Mount, they saw a fox that emerged from the site of the Holy of Holies. So if you have the mountain, you have the Temple Mount, you have where the temple is, and inner courtyard is the Holy of Holies, right? They see a fox running out. And the rabbis began to weep, and Rabbi Akiva was laughing. And they said to him, "What is your reason for laughing?" And he said to them, "What's your reason? What is your reason for weeping?" Strange conversation. They said to him, "This is the place concerning that is written, and non-priest who approaches shall die." Meaning this, the Holy of Holies, the high priest, one day a year can go into that space, right? Meaning no one's allowed there at all, and there's a fox running out, right? Like, how degrading is this, that we're so low? How should we not weep? Rabbi Akiva said to them, "This is why I'm laughing." I skipped a bit of the exegesis here. We're going to sort of move ahead. The verse established, so Rabbi Akiva says in Uriah, he talks about that the Zion will be plowed under like a field, aka where a fox is, and the contingency of Uriah's vision is you need Uriah's vision to get to Zechariah's vision, right? Where he quotes from Zechariah, "And there shall be old men and women sitting in the streets of Jerusalem." Upon the prophecy of Uriah, which regarding the destruction of the city was fulfilled, I was afraid the prophecy of Zechariah would not be fulfilled. But the two prophecies are linked. Now that prophecy of Uriah, meaning that it was plowed under, was fulfilled, it is evident that prophecy of Zechariah will remain valid. Meaning that Temple Mount has been plowed under, that the holiest building is destroyed, that the fox is running out, and he's laughing because he says, the prophecy of Uriah is fulfilled, and that is a precursor to Zechariah's vision. The prophecy of Zechariah is what we just read, which was a future vision of play, right? Now this is crazy. Now the rabbis respond, Akiva, you have comforted us. Akiva, you have comforted us. Meaning his laughing pulled them in to enable them to get past this moment. It helped them with their mental crisis that they were suffering, which is degradation. Now, I don't have to be a scholar of this, but just to say, the fox is a wily creature, right? And it is fascinating to say to Salo Baron, yes, our history has been painful, but we always have the Rabbi Akiva fork in the road. Are we going to cry or are we going to laugh? And how does Rabbi Akiva understand Zechariah? He understands it's still a vision. Even in urgency, even in crisis, it's still the thing that I want is a different future. I'm not going to get there by putting childish things aside. I need to center my focus on purposeful play. That is my vision. I was worried it wasn't going to happen, but the fact that point A happened will mean that point B will happen, and I'm really excited because that will be what I want, which is an imagination of the future. So this is fascinating, is he sees the fox, or read in Native American coyote, as the trickster showing up and being tricky and being, subversive. It's impossible for me not to see in Rabbi Akiva that he is being a fox. He's being a jester. He's actually demeaning. He sees them being demeaned, but he's like, I'm going to dress like a jerk and go to the marketplace. And I'm going to laugh at this moment because I'm going to pull you in. Because not just that I saw a fox, I'm the fox. Why is this? Because I'm being playful with Jewish text. He's being playful as an adult. Rav Baroka came from the serious place of the house of learning, and he went to the marketplace, and he saw people who were getting an A+. He wasn't getting an A+ because he was an academic. But he went to the market, and he said, who's getting an A+? These guys are getting an A+. Rabbi Akiva is a rabbi who existed in the marketplace. Rabbi Akiva was a trickster who said, I can play as a child, and I can play as an adult. As an adult, I play by playing with text, because now I get to see how the world is fitting together, and I can laugh and take joy out of that. And what I've read of Sir John is that he too was an optimist. He wanted to cultivate an optimism of how do we choose the Rav Akiva path? How do we choose the path of the fox? Not as a symbol of degradation, but as a symbol of future opportunity. How do we actually use the fox to inspire a different mentality, to create a different reality? In her excellent book, Tomorrow, 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 I think Gabriella Zevin captured an essence of what play is. We allow yourself to play with another person is no small risk, on source number 6. It means allowing yourself to be open, to be exposed, to be hurt, is a human equivalent to a dog rolling on its back. I know we won't hurt me, even though you can. It's a dog putting its mouth around your hand, never biting down. To play requires trust and love. It is no mistake that in a time of great peril, we shrink back. We don't want to be exposed. We're worried the dog's going to bite us. But at the same time, we'd have to be foolhardy not to say the crisis we're in now is not a crisis of a lack of truth. It is a deficit of trust. If we're going to get past this moment as a nation, we need to figure out how do we cultivate vulnerability and trust and love. Camp is the land of trust falls and counselors who understand their job is to pull you in. How do we bring that out? What is the escape velocity for actually cultivating that in a larger society? Charles Eliot, president of Harvard in the end of the 19th century, said, I have a conviction that a few weeks in a well-organized summer camp may be of more value educationally than a whole year of normal schoolwork. This might not happen in the Beit Midrash, it might not happen in the study hall, it might not even happen in the marketplace. I think there's permission we give when we play with our children, there's permission we give when we go into a camp at any age to engage in purposeful play. One of my favorite books, Lewis Hyde in Trickster Makes This World, wrote, this is number 7 here, trickster is among other things the gatekeeper opens the door into the next world. Those who mistake him as a psychopath never even know such a door exists. I'll read that again. Trickster is among other things the gatekeeper opens the door into the next world. Those who mistake him for a psychopath never even know the door exists. Rav Baroka goes to the marketplace. Who gets an A+? The jesters. Who understands the gateway to the next world? The jesters. The rabbis were crying because they were shamed. These guys show up in the marketplace looking like a-holes. And that's fine. Why? Because they chose it. They had agency, and they chose it because they knew they could pull people in and do great work with that. If we don't understand the trickster, the fox, coyote, as the person pulling us in, we don't even know where the world to come is. And if we're stuck in our old mentality, we'll never cultivate a new mentality. But purposeful play is the opportunity and excuse to actually flex ourselves into what could be. We need to cultivate a new imagination to rebuild a nation. We desperately need a new mentality to emerge of this terrible time. I'm not being Pollyannish. I think we're deeply rooted in the pain that we all feel. We need to take the invitation not just to press play, but to play. The moral cry for purposeful play will help us cultivate awe, resilience, and hope, things that we desperately need so much right now. In Psalms, we say a line that strikes such a chord, those who sow in tears shall reap with songs of joy. When I think about purposeful play, I realize we need to become better farmers and learn how to sow with joy.